Hey, it's Mr. Jones, and I'm back with another episode of Mr. Jones Learning Videos. So today we're going to talk about fractions. We're also going to talk about converting from fractions to percents and decimals. So fraction is a numerical quantity that represents a number that is partial or not whole. For example, 1/4. In other words, it tells you how many parts of a whole we have. So here's just a quick labeled representation of a fraction. We have our numerator, our fraction bar, and our denominator. It can also be thought of as indicating that a number is being divided by another. Fractions naturally involve division, as the denominator shows how many parts something has been divided into, or how many wholes are present in total. So we have 3/4. It's the same as 3 divided by 4. Fraction basics. When we're dealing with fractions, we're always talking about parts and their relationships to the whole. Any number over itself is equal to 1. So for example, 5/5 is equal to 1, and that would be the same with any whole number over itself. Any whole number can be rewritten as itself over 1, because it is expressing that there are that many wholes. So 5 can be rewritten as 5 over 1, because it's expressing that there are 5 wholes. Fraction representations. So here are some of the common fraction representations we encounter. We have our pizza model that everybody loves, that we also can call fraction circles, our chocolate bar, that's often called bar modeling and is used a lot in Singapore math, and our Smarties, or our counters representation. So there's some important differences between these representations. These two show fractional amounts that are parts of a whole, so slices of a pizza or pieces of a chocolate bar, whereas this representation shows wholes in a set. So you have 6 wholes in a set, and 4 of them are black. Some other representations that are common, you can have a number line. This is really great if you're unsure of how fractions like eighths fit in with halves and quarters. It's great to write them out on a number line to sort of orient yourself to where everything falls. And area models are really good as well at showing fractions. So in this case, we have 3/4 represented in an area model. Improper fractions. An improper fraction is a fraction with a numerator that is larger or has a higher value than the denominator. That is to say, it's a fractional number that is greater than 1, expressed in fraction form without a whole number in front. So again, here we have a greater numerator. We have 15/8, which is a lesser denominator. A mixed number is a number that mixes a whole number and a fraction. It's the result of dividing the numerator of an improper fraction by its denominator and writing the wholes and leftover parts as a number. So with the last fraction we encountered, 8 fits into 15 once, and there is 7 left over. Therefore, represented in a mixed number, it would be 1 7/8. Relationship to division. Fractions can be thought of as division. In fact, in high school you'll encounter expressions like the following, where the fraction bar tells you to divide. So the fraction bar there is telling you that once you figure out this expression, then you would divide. Or you might have to rearrange these using different operations and integers and things like that. We can also think of fractions as division statements. So in this case, we have a over b is the same thing as a divided by b. So 3/4 is the same thing as 3 divided by 4. Both of them are equal to 0.75 or 75 hundredths. Adding fractions. There are 3 things that must be done when we add fractions. We must find a common denominator, adjust the numerators to reflect the new denominators, and then add only the numerators, keeping the denominator the same. The reason we don't add the denominators is that would change the amount of parts the whole is divided into, which would change the value of the sum. So in this case, we have 7/8 plus 3/5. Counting by 8s and then counting by 5s, we see that 40 is a great option for a common denominator because it's the least common multiple. So whatever we multiplied 8 by to get to 40, in this case it was 5, we also have to multiply the numerator by. And whatever we multiplied 5 by to get to 40, in this case it's 8, we also had to multiply the numerator by that. And so we end up with 35 over 40 plus 24 over 40, which gives us 59 over 40. It's always great practice to take your improper fraction and represent it as a mixed number. It's just neater and it's sort of good form when we're working with fractions. Subtracting fractions. I'm not going to spend too much time on them because it's basically the same idea as adding fractions. You're going to find a common denominator like I just showed you, and then you're going to subtract only the numerators and you're not going to touch the denominator. Multiplying fractions. So this is probably the easiest operation to do with fractions because you don't need a common denominator. You just multiply the numerator by the numerator and the denominator by the denominator. So in this case, 3 times 5 is 15, 4 times 8 is 32. Dividing fractions. The main strategy we use to divide fractions is to flip the second fraction and multiply, just like in multiplying fractions. Flipping the fraction is called taking the reciprocal. So in this case, we have 2/3 divided by 4/7. We're going to rewrite it with the reciprocal as the second fraction. So instead of 4/7, it's now 7/4. So we have 2/3 times 7/4. And that's going to give us 14/12, which can be reduced. I don't think I reduced it here, but that should be reduced to 7/6. Converting a fraction to a decimal. So to convert any fraction to a decimal, we simply divide the numerator by the denominator. So again, earlier we were talking about that division relationship with fractions, and this is exactly that. So 35 divided by 50 gives us 7/10. And you even see it in the language. 0.7, we call it 7/10, and it's the same thing as if I were to write 7 over 10 in fractional form. From a decimal, to get to a percent, we multiply by 100%. So 0.7 or 7/10 times 100% gives us 70%. And then if we want to convert a percent to a fraction, we put the percentage over 100, we remove the percent signs, and we reduce. So in this case, 70 over 100 can be reduced to 7/10. All right, well, that's it for this time. Stay tuned because I'm going to do a video shortly that touches on representing fractions and representing operations that we use with fractions. So stay tuned for that. All right, thanks for watching.